Hi, I'm Liam Fennell. Welcome to episode 2 of What Now?
And I am Dexter G. In each episode of What Now, we're going to focus on an aspect of what we see as the key pillars that enhance our lives during this pandemic and beyond, namely our mental, physical, and spiritual pillars.
That's exactly right, Dex. And in this episode, we're actually turning to the physical pillar specifically so that we can have a look at how we can make the most of our physical home environment to educate our kids.
You know, who would have thought a few weeks ago that we would have to turn our homes into classrooms for our children? Yet that's exactly what has happened for many folks around the globe.
Our guest today is Deana Seabrooks. She's an ESL teacher and expat living in Seville, Spain. She's joining us to talk about how she switched from her traditional classroom to a virtual one, and offering some great tips on how to keep your kids focused on learning while they're confined at home.
Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Doing well, thank you. So, Deana, you know Liam, our co-host here. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be. How did you guys become connected?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, we did meet at a club, but it wasn't like that. So,
No, of course not.
yeah, it was a friend of a friend. So, we have mutual friends, and obviously, being expats of other countries, I think, that's just something that naturally happens.
And you are overseas, and you are experiencing the same kind of dynamic that many Americans are facing in terms of having to care for and educate kids in a remote setting. Please go ahead and talk to us about how you have adapted to this whole scenario of remote learning. Was it a difficult transition from the traditional classroom?
Initially, once this sort of set on, I think I, as well as a lot of my coworkers, felt a bit anxious because I think all but one had the experience of teaching online. So we were a bit taken aback as to how we were going to do this. We hadn't had the experience. Just sort of, hands in your hair, tearing your hair out. What am I going to do?
Yes.
I think less than 24 hours of the initial scare or the notice that we were going on lockdown, we adapted well.
So now that you are 4 weeks or so into it, what's your general sense of how the kids are doing? Are they in good spirits? How have they adapted to this new remote way of learning?
Because my younger students are anywhere between 4 and 6 years old. I'm not sure what mommy and daddy have told them to explain all this.
Yeah.
But when it's time for English class, they seem very ready for it. They're anticipating it. They participate fully. Anytime I ask questions, I can hear one or two, and maybe there's a little delay, but they still respond. Teenagers, well, they're in a world of their own, aren't they? I mean, I try to give the class in a way where I'm not sort of, dictating it, and I'm explaining whatever I need to explain, whether it be the grammar, vocabulary, related to the lesson, and constantly, like, for example, sharing documents and files so that they are immersed in the activity just as much as they would be in a physical classroom.
So, Deana, what about any tips that you can give? Like how can caregivers ensure that their children are in fact staying focused, while they're having to do this different type of learning, this remote type of learning?
Aside from putting microphones and cameras in their rooms, they might need to. I know that the parents of my students and my neighbors are doing is that they make sure that the kids are basically following their normal school schedule. And this gives them structure within this situation that is abnormal, but try to make it still as normal as possible.
Do you know if there's a reward system that parents have instituted or that you institute actually to encourage good study behaviors?
I know what I hear. I hear my I hear my neighbor's kids running back and forth. So it's like they probably give them sort of freedom within the household, because obviously that's not something that's very typical. So for all my nursery classes, it says, "Oh, you did a great job on that assignment," and so they hear their name, and it's very reinforcing the that praise for them. Like I said, to keep this still normal, to keep that normalcy.
Are there online resources that might help the students or even the parents facilitate the students learning at home?
If we're talking about young kids, many young learners, YouTube has great videos. Sesame Street. There's also one that I like to use a lot called Pancake Manor. Super simple songs. Okay, so like I said, for the young ones, it's great, and there is a very large library of videos that teach various things through song. As far as the teenagers are concerned, there's definitely resources available through the Cambridge website. They do not have the excuse of saying that they can't find their books, because Cambridge is having the book available virtually on digital download. So, that's a plus for everybody, the teachers as well as the parents.
What might be some, other obstacles or challenges that that caregivers are facing while educating their kids at home, and any solutions that could be offered? Like, it sounds like you've noticed that your neighbors may be giving them some sort of free rein of the house to run around and let off steam. In any other tips?
With young learners, especially, with children so young, between ages of, let's say, 3 to 7 or 8, they need a lot of stimuli. So what I like to do is introduce material, maybe do reviews or what have you for a very short amount of time, and switch it up, go to something else, because it's typical in children to have a short attention. With teenagers, this is what I do. I know that some of my colleagues do the same thing. I like to introduce music in class, whether it has something or nothing to do with the lesson. Maybe I'm playing a little hip hop in the background, and I'm dancing and doing and singing along with the lyrics, and like, oh, teacher, you listen to Drake? Well, yeah, of course I listen to Drake. But that helps them feel a lot more relaxed about the lesson, and then you go from that to, okay, guys, let's get started. Always introduce some type of game. Definitely introduce a type of game. When teenagers start with that very fun competition, it just makes learning that much more bearable for both the students as well as the educators.
So, Deana, I guess on more of a sort of practical and physical level, do you have any suggestions on how parents or caregivers can organize their home to make it, more conducive to effective learning?
With young learners, you might want to take a Montessori approach. It is an open classroom. There are no tables, no chairs, and the children themselves sort of gravitate towards the side of the room that they want to go to, depending on the activities that are already set up. So what can parents do? They can, besides following that typical school schedule, say, okay, what's your first lesson? So your first lesson is going to be in the dining room. Okay, your next lesson is, let's say, math. So now you're going to do math in your room. Okay, your third lesson is geography. So let's do geography in the garden, for example, or on the terrace. Okay, so that's another stimuli that really helps break up the monotony for kids.
Obviously, parents are also having to work from home, a lot of the time under this new system that we've all had to get used to. What about, have you got any suggestions on how parents may still be able to, get the work done that they need to do while at the same time making sure their kids are doing what they need to?
While parents are working, that the kids maybe are engaged with other things such as either online games or board games. This is where board games come in really, really handy. So these are things that very inexpensive. You probably already have at home. Just be innovative. Just trying to be as innovative as possible.
Getting innovative is the name of the game for sure. Thanks again, Deana, for being our guest and for sharing your insights into how to make remote learning as effective as possible.
We've also included some additional resources at the end of this clip to help you find material and ideas for enhancing your children's learning experience while they're cooped up at home.
Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Please stay safe and be well. Kia kaha.
Kia kaha. See you next time.
Who do you call when the walls tumble down and all you can think to do is scream, what now?